I found Christ when I was in 8th grade on a mission trip to Tijuana, Mexico. And then throughout high school, after high school, I lost my way. And then once I met Travis and we were married and had kids, I knew I needed to get back into church. I went to church out of moral obligation.
I guess my growing up was not Christian or church related at all. Things that happened in my past, it was not even a consideration.
Easter Sunday 2013, I woke up and knew that I needed to go to church and take my kids to church. I asked Travis to go with me and he did not want to go. So I left and took the kids. And I had a great service. It was really powerful. I came home, told Travis all about it, and asked if he would just give it one try. Just one service and see how he felt about it.
I believe it was the next Sunday, Jessica got me, or dragged me, or whatever you want to call it, to a series that GCC was holding called Lies We Believe. For the first time, I think, words that were spoken actually clicked in my life. What Pastor Josh was preaching made sense to me. I had a kind of a dysfunctional growing up. It kind of started bringing answers to the table, which I've never heard before. The sermon, I don't remember what week it was. It was probably around week 3, and it was about sexual abuse. And it was very hard, and I was almost trying to run away again.
I could tell that that was a sermon that he didn't want to hear, but he wanted to hear. So we didn't go to church that Sunday, and I waited for it to appear online and asked if he would sit down and listen to the sermon together at home after the kids had gone to bed, and he agreed to do that. We did continue to go back week after week after that to finish this series. It was a wonderful series, and I could feel Travis loosening up each sermon, and I knew at that point that maybe we had found our church family. One Sunday morning, when the church had moved to the Performing Arts Center, we were meeting there, and there was a couple that got on the stage and was sharing their testimony. They were part of a gospel community and what the gospel community has brought to their life. And I just remember feeling overwhelmed and knowing that's exactly what we were missing and that's exactly what I had wanted. So at that point I began praying for God to place us in a gospel community. It wasn't too long later that Laura Strong, I met Laura several years before. Laura approached me to let me know that a campaign was coming up, the Treasure Campaign, and also with that, Financial Peace University. I asked Travis, and my thought was maybe if it was about money and not about the Bible, he'd be more inclined to go. And little did I know it ended up being about both. So I asked Travis. He quickly said yes, surprised me. And then I started getting really nervous and hesitant just because sometimes I have a hard time with getting close relationships with people. Laura came up to me one day after church and asked if I was going to join FPU, if we were going to join FPU, and I said yes, I think we are. And she said, great, you should join ours. Our gospel community is part of it too, and you'll have to meet our gospel community. They've changed my life. And I thought, wow, okay. So we joined FPU. From the very first time, the gospel community was reaching out to Travis and getting to know him. And the women were coming up to me, and the ladies were interested in getting to know me. Developing these relationships with the ladies was something I had never had before. Getting together once a week and talking about real life, not just surface things, but really, how are you really doing? And they really wanted to know, to encourage, to support, to pray, to love one another. And that was remarkable.
I believe when we first heard about gospel communities, to me, it seemed like just a basic Bible study. I didn't think it would be just a whole bunch of families getting together and having fun. I mean, we would do ping pong parties and just big old games, barbecues, everything you can think of. And it was just, we had a lot more fun than we originally ever thought we would. And our kids were welcome.
One of the parties at the McMullen's house, I remember when we were leaving, after a night of just having fun, getting to know people, getting to know the gospel community, I remember leaving and feeling, wow, this is what we've been missing. Through our gospel community, we did the story of God. The story of God was the most helpful presentation of the Bible that I have ever heard. I remember going into the story of God thinking, great, this is going to be perfect for Travis. And I quickly found out that I really needed to go through the story of God.
For the first time, we actually got together and actually were reading the Bible. We were going through the first part of Genesis and reading about these people and these stories and all the mishap. And we're like, wait a second, what went on here? So we would actually go home and read to each other the Bible. That's something we would never even think about doing before. So one night, we were sitting around the table having a community dinner, and Kent McMullen, he loves to play games. And it can be for 5 minutes, it can be for an hour. But it was, I believe, a rapid question, and it was going around the table, and it was like, what was your favorite year in school? It was my turn, and I said I didn't really have one. I had a dysfunctional early childhood where a lot of bad and messed up things happened in my life, and so the first 4 years I was scared, very hurt, and then the next 4 was rebellion. At a very young age, I was sneaking alcohol, stealing it, and drinking actually shots before I went to school. My 8th grade year, I had like 8 buddies that were just bad. I guess you would call them bad eggs or, troubled kids. And my one friend was sitting there tripping on acid, and something went off right there. And I was like, I gotta be done. And from that point, it was try to rebuild myself. In our men's group, we were going through a book called Gospel-Centered Life. And there was a part where it said, what kind of person are you? And I realized that I was a performance-based person. And I needed other people's approval, and I never felt like I was good enough. And that was one of the very difficult times I had about coming to Christ, because I never thought I was good enough with my past. I always felt dirty. I saw people getting baptized. I remember Easter, Pastor Adam was making his speech, God makes new. God makes new. Jesus makes new. And there was like just a train of people going up there getting baptized. And I was like, I wish that was me right now. I wish I felt so dirty. I wish I can be good enough to be in that water. During the Instagram project we were working on, the GC set us up for us to go last, so we'd understand what the process was and what we would share. And we really found out that we weren't the only ones with had issues growing up. Everyone had so much stuff they've dealt with through their life, and they went to Jesus and followed him we went through and told our story. And it was hard, because you dig up things in your past that you're not ready to dig up. You know, you try to hide those things.
I walked through my story, and it's something that I never sat and thought about before, and actually talking about it with our gospel community was a big deal. It brought up a lot of emotion, but I could clearly see at every point that was the hardest, someone was there to shine a light of Jesus every time, all the way up through the story from a young girl to now. There's been an individual that Jesus saves, that God uses his people, and I could see that.
I questioned God a lot in saying that there was no God. I mean, that's who I was. And you look back and you're like, okay, wow, there he was there. I shouldn't have made it out of that. I shouldn't have lived past that. I should be in jail right now, but I'm not. There was a hand on me at all times through my life. Kent previously asked me, how close are you to making it to God? And I told him, it was a couple months before, I was like, I'm really close. I said, I'm just not there yet. He says, take your time. And then after the story, looking back at my life, he asked me, where are you at now? I said, I'm ready to get wet.
I was praying for Travis to lead me, lead our family. I was praying for his salvation, and it was right before my eyes. In that moment, I realized that he had passed me in the race, and he was leading me now.
From the point of me realizing I would be accepted into Christ, I was able to lay all of the sins that were done to me and that I have done on his shoulders, and was set free. Knowing that Jesus died for all my sins, that weight that I thought I had to carry myself is gone. I get out, and I thought Kyle was going to baptize Jessica. And he says, no, man, it's your turn. You baptize your wife.
Watching Travis get baptized was so emotional, because I remember beginning this journey with him that I was bringing him to church. I was bringing him for salvation. And I had no idea that I had needed it too. And I needed to find Christ again.
Jesus has done a lot in both of our lives. Without us even knowing, he showed us a way that we didn't know was even there. Through disciples that were brought into our lives, now we have the chance to disciple other people and our children.
Our home life has changed a lot since joining a gospel community. We read the word together, we pray together, we parent differently, we're debt-free since FPU.
Going to a gospel community, people would ask us, so are you going to your Bible study? And we're like, it's not a Bible study. It's a family community. It's not about going every Sunday. It's about doing it all the time.
When we're asked, are you going to your church group tonight? No, we're going to hang out with our friends, our family. My hope for everybody is that they would find a gospel community to plug into. It has changed our life. It's completely rocked our world the last year and a half. And we have relationships with strangers that are now close or closer than our family members to us. And that's amazing.